The city of New York has always been a place where dreams are either manufactured into reality or left to fade against the backdrop of an unforgiving skyline. It is a metropolis built on the collective energy of millions of strivers, each chasing a phantom of success that remains forever out of reach for most. Yet every once in a while, the city pauses to bear witness to a narrative so extraordinary that it reshapes the cultural fabric of an entire generation. On a seemingly ordinary Thursday evening, beneath the glittering lights of the Marriott Marquis Hotel, a gathering of the musical elite took place, marking a moment that would be etched into the annals of modern cultural history. The air inside the grand ballroom was thick with anticipation, carrying the weight of decades of artistic legacy as the industry prepared to honor those rare creators whose words have become the soundtrack to human existence. It is in these rare moments that we truly understand the profound power of a single melody or a carefully crafted lyric to bridge the gap between individual isolation and universal human experience. If you find yourself captivated by these stories of unparalleled dedication, creative triumph, and the extraordinary journeys of the world's most influential figures, please take a brief moment to subscribe to our channel and join our growing community of passionate storytellers. Long before the flashbulbs of the International Press Corps illuminated the grand stage of the Songwriters Hall of Fame induction and Awards Gala, the foundation for this historic night was being laid in the quiet, mundane corners of everyday life. The path to achieving legendary status within the creative arts is rarely a straight line, nor is it a journey that anyone can truly walk entirely alone. It begins with a spark of innate talent, a quiet obsession with words and sounds that refuses to be silenced by the skepticism of the outside world. For one young artist, that obsession manifested in the rhythmic scribbling of lyrics into notebooks during high school classes and the tentative plucking of guitar strings in a suburban bedroom far removed from the centers of musical commerce. The industry itself is an intimidating, towering monolith that often looks upon newcomers with a sense of cold indifference, demanding a level of sacrifice that very few are genuinely prepared to make. To transform from an aspiring songwriter into a cultural phenomenon requires not just a mastery of craft, but an almost supernatural resilience and an unwavering belief in the validity of one's own voice. As the prestigious audience gathered in the heart of Manhattan, there was a palpable sense that they were not merely attending another standard industry awards ceremony, but rather participating in a coronation that had been 20 years in the making. To truly understand the gravity of what transpired during this monumental evening, one must look back at the historical precedents that define the Songwriters Hall of Fame. It is an institution that does not hand out accolades lightly, maintaining a strict and rigorous set of standards that ensures only the most enduring and culturally significant catalog of work is ever recognized. The rule is unyielding and absolute, requiring a minimum of 2 decades to pass from the time of an artist's first official commercial release before they can even be considered for full induction into this elite brotherhood of creators. This 20-year buffer serves as a crucible, separating the fleeting sensations of a passing pop cultural moment from the timeless masters whose work will continue to resonate for generations to come. It forces the industry to ask whether a song is merely a product of its contemporary environment or a permanent fixture of the human experience. When looking back across the vast expanse of musical history, the names that adorn the hall are the architects of the modern sonic landscape. Individuals who defined eras and gave voice to the unexpressed emotions of billions of listeners across the globe. Therefore, entering this sacred space is not just an acknowledgement of current popularity, but a definitive declaration of permanent artistic immortality. The atmosphere within the Marriott Marquis Hotel was a masterclass in elegant tension, blending the nostalgic reverence of the past with the electric vitality of the contemporary entertainment landscape. Tables were crowded with iconic figures whose collective work spanned genres from the raw energy of arena rock to the intricate storytelling of traditional folk and the polished hooks of modern pop music. As the evening commenced, the opening remarks set a tone of profound respect for the foundational element of the entire music business, which is the song itself. In an industry that often prioritizes image, marketing, and the superficial glitz of celebrity culture, this specific gathering serves as a stark and necessary reminder that everything begins with a blank page and an instrument. The chairman of the organization, a legendary figure in his own right, beautifully articulated this sentiment by noting that without the initial artistry of the songwriter, the entire apparatus of the modern music world would simply cease to exist. There would be no packed stadiums, no late-night stadium anthems, no emotional connections forged through headphones in the dark, and no shared cultural touchstones to unite an increasingly fragmented society. The song is the origin point of all musical commerce, the single spark that ignites a global firestorm of fandom and emotional investment, against this backdrop of institutional reverence. The focus of the night naturally gravitated toward a singular figure who, at just 36 years old, was poised to shatter a record that had stood for decades. The sheer magnitude of this achievement becomes even more staggering when one considers the vast numbers of incredibly talented women who have contributed to the musical canon over the last century. To ascend to the highest echelons of this male-dominated creative hierarchy at such a remarkably young age is a testament to an unprecedented level of productivity and enduring relevance. The journey from a teenage phenomenon to the youngest woman ever inducted into the Songwriters Hall of Fame is a narrative that defies the traditional trajectories of stardom, which so often see early success devolve into creative burnout or public obscurity. Instead, this artist maintained an upward trajectory that seemed to defy the very laws of gravity governing the entertainment industry, turning every personal trial and public tribulation into raw material for her next masterpiece. The collective gaze of the audience was fixed on her, recognizing that they were witnessing a moment where contemporary pop culture statistics transitioned into the realm of permanent, undeniable history. The emotional core of the evening began to reveal itself as the ceremony progressed through its initial stages, carefully building a narrative arc that mirrored the slow, painstaking climb of the inductees. The crowd was treated to retrospective montages that highlighted the extraordinary evolution of the musical landscape over the past 20 years, illustrating how much the world had changed since the early days of the new millennium. Yet, amid all the technological shifts and changing consumer habits, the fundamental nature of a great song remained entirely unaltered. It still required an honest vulnerability, an innate understanding of human psychology, and the unique ability to capture a complex emotion in a simple, memorable phrase. The sheer diversity of the inductees showcased on the program further emphasized the universal nature of this craft, proving that whether a song is born from the aggressive theatricality of rock or the delicate introspection of acoustic storytelling, its ultimate goal remains the exact same. As the lights dimmed for the introduction of the evening's most anticipated honoree, a hush fell over the room, and the collective breath of the audience was held in anticipation of a speech that promised to be as deeply personal and evocative as the songs that brought her to that stage. When the name of Taylor Swift was finally called to the podium, the atmosphere inside the Marriott Marquis Hotel shifted from polite industry reverence to an overwhelming electric roar of validation. Standing before a room filled with her peers, mentors, and the legendary architects of modern sound, the 36-year-old icon looked out at the crowd, her eyes shining with tears that she did not attempt to hide. This moment was the culmination of a 20-year journey that began with the release of her debut single, Tim McGraw, back in 2006. A song that had introduced the world to a fiercely talented teenager who possessed an uncanny ability to turn teenage heartbreak into universal anthems. To understand the depth of her emotion during this historic induction, one must look past the stadium tours and global headlines to the literal foundation of her life. As she began her acceptance speech, her voice trembled slightly, but her words were clear and deeply deliberate. She turned her focus away from her own achievements and directed it entirely toward her family, who sat watching from a central table. Her parents, Scott and Andrea Swift, along with her brother, Austin Swift, became the central characters of her address as she publicly thanked them for uprooting their entire lives, leaving behind the comfort and stability of their home in Pennsylvania, and moving to Nashville, Tennessee when she was just a young girl. This total relocation was not a casual decision or a minor adjustment, but an absolute leap of faith into an uncertain future driven entirely by a shared belief in her raw potential. Nashville was the place she explicitly described during her speech as the songwriting capital of the world, a highly competitive creative ecosystem where thousands of hopeful artists arrive every single year, only for the vast majority to leave empty-handed. For the Swift family, the move was a monumental gamble, a collective sacrifice that placed the weight of their familial future upon the shoulders of a child's creative vision. In a deeply moving and vulnerable declaration that resonated throughout the silent ballroom, she looked directly at her family and told them that they were the sole reason she was standing on that prestigious stage tonight. The raw sincerity of this acknowledgement provided a stark contrast to the often superficial nature of the entertainment industry, revealing that behind the unparalleled success of the Taylor Swift phenomenon lies a tightly knit support system that has remained completely unbroken from the very first day. This familial foundation provided her with the emotional security required to expose her innermost thoughts to the world, a vulnerability that would eventually become her greatest creative superpower. The historical significance of her induction was further highlighted by a unique institutional milestone that set her completely apart from every other songwriter in the row. In 2010, as a fast-rising 20-year-old star, she had been awarded the Songwriters Hall of Fame prestigious Hal David Starlight Award, an honor specifically designed to recognize young songwriters who are making a significant impact on the music industry at the very beginning of their professional careers. Tonight, by achieving full induction into the Hall of Fame in 2026, she made history as the very first artist to ever transition from winning the Starlight Award to gaining full, permanent membership status in the organization. This trajectory perfectly illustrates the rare longevity of her career, proving that she was not just a fleeting teenage sensation, but a generational talent capable of sustaining and expanding her creative impact over the course of 2 decades. The Hall of Fame formally recognized a specific catalog of her songs that have fundamentally altered the modern cultural landscape, a diverse collection of tracks that demonstrates her incredible range as a writer. Among the honored pieces was All Too Well, 10-minute Taylor's version, a cinematic, lyrical masterpiece that defied traditional radio formats to become a cultural touchstone and a definitive fan favorite. The organization also highlighted the sharp, satirical pop perfection of Blank Space, a track that brilliantly dismantled the media's distorted narrative of her personal life, as well as the dark, self-reflective introspection of Anti-Hero, which became a global anthem for an entire generation wrestling with self-doubt and anxiety in the modern digital age. The timeless narrative romance of Love Story, which reimagined classic literature through the lens of youthful optimism, and the intricate, historical storytelling of the last great American dynasty were also explicitly singled out as examples of her unparalleled ability to build vivid worlds within the confines of a 4-minute song. When examining these tracks, the true mechanics of her creative process come to light, revealing a work ethic that is as relentless as it is unpredictable. The songwriter has previously shared that many of her absolute best ideas do not arrive during scheduled writing sessions or under ideal professional conditions, but rather in the dead of night during those quiet, frustrating hours when she is actively trying to fall asleep and unexpected inspiration suddenly strikes. She described how a lyric or a melody will suddenly flood her mind, forcing her to abandon any hope of rest. As she wanders over to her piano in the dark to capture the fleeting thought before it disappears forever into the ether, this nocturnal devotion to her craft emphasizes the reality that for a true songwriter, creation is not a job that can be turned off at the end of the business day, but an ongoing, inescapable compulsion to translate reality into melody. As the evening progressed, the celebration expanded to honor the other legendary figures who comprised the star-studded induction class of 2026, creating a beautiful mosaic of musical history across vastly different genres. The rock world was heavily represented by the iconic duo of Gene Simmons and Paul Stanley, the visionary co-founders of the legendary band Kiss, who spent half a century defining the theatrical, high-energy boundaries of arena rock and creating anthems that became global phenomena. Beside them stood Alanis Morissette, whose raw, unfiltered alternative rock masterpieces in the 90s gave an uncompromising voice to a generation of listeners seeking emotional honesty and unvarnished truth. The ceremony also honored the brilliant behind-the-scenes masterminds who have shaped the sonic identity of modern radio, including Christopher "Tricky" Stewart, a producer and writer responsible for some of the most massive R&B and pop hits of the 21st century, and Walter Afanasieff, the genius composer behind legendary, soaring ballads that have become permanent fixtures of global pop culture. The legendary songwriting duos and solo masters Terry Britten, Graham Lyle, and Kenny Loggins were also inducted, each representing a distinct era of musical brilliance, from high-stakes cinematic soundtracks to soulful pop classics that have stood the test of time. This diverse lineup served as a powerful reminder of the overarching theme articulated by Nile Rodgers, the legendary chairman of the Songwriters Hall of Fame, who had noted earlier in the year that the entire music industry is built entirely upon the incredible foundational talent of songwriters who create unforgettable songs. In his official statements, Rogers emphasized that without the initial artistry of these creators, the entire global apparatus of recorded music, massive stadium concert experiences, and highly engaged fan communities would simply cease to exist. Because absolutely everything originates from the song and its creator. The organization took immense pride in its ongoing historical commitment to recognizing the most culturally significant composers in human history. Noting that the 2026 class not only showcased iconic melodies but also celebrated a profound sense of unity across vastly different musical genres. These individuals have collectively impacted the lives of billions of listeners worldwide, shaping memories, healing heartbreaks, and defining the shared human experience through their art. Yet, as spectacular as the Hall of Fame induction was, it represented only one facet of an incredibly intense, high-stakes week for Taylor Swift in New York City. A week that seamlessly blended her professional legacy with a massive, highly anticipated milestone in her personal life. The entire global entertainment media had been whipped into a state of absolute frenzy following exclusive reports from Page Six indicating that this prestigious award ceremony was taking place just weeks before she and her fiancé, the world-famous NFL star Travis Kelce, are scheduled to officially tie the knot. The power couple, both 36 years old, have captivated the public imagination across the world, blending the spheres of elite sports and global pop music into a modern cultural phenomenon. According to highly placed insiders, the pair are set to exchange their wedding vows over the upcoming July 3rd holiday weekend in a ceremony that promises to completely redefine the boundaries of high-profile celebrity events. The chosen location for this historic wedding is none other than Madison Square Garden, an iconic, towering indoor arena located in the absolute heart of Manhattan. A venue that is universally recognized as the world's most famous arena, and a place that holds a deeply sacred, emotional significance for the singer herself. The choice of Madison Square Garden as a wedding venue is a decision that perfectly encapsulates the sheer, unprecedented scale of Taylor Swift's life, transforming a legendary secular cathedral of sports and entertainment into an intimate sanctuary for personal vows. To the average citizen, the idea of hosting a private wedding inside an arena that routinely seats nearly 20,000 people sounds like an impossible, logistical nightmare. But as industry insiders have pointed out with a touch of dry realism, when you possess billions of dollars and an unmatched cultural influence, you can easily transform even the most massive urban coliseum into a breathtaking private oasis. The iconic arena, which serves as the permanent home to the New York Knicks basketball franchise and the New York Rangers hockey team, has been the backdrop for some of the most defining moments in American sports history and entertainment culture. For the Welcome to New York singer, the building is far more than just a famous landmark on a map. It is a personal monument to her own artistic growth and commercial dominance. Over the course of her glittering 20-year career, she has taken the stage at the Garden an impressive 8 times, beginning with her historic Fearless Tour in 2009, continuing through 2 sold-out nights for her Speak Now era, and concluding with 4 triumphant headlining appearances at the famous Z100 Jingle Ball. Every square inch of that historic floor has been saturated with the sweat of legendary athletes and the echoes of timeless musical performances, making it the absolute perfect setting for a woman who has consistently broken every single record the entertainment industry has to offer. The impending nuptials have been shrouded in an ironclad cloak of absolute secrecy, with everyone involved in the planning process being sworn to the highest levels of confidentiality, to prevent the inevitable media circus from completely overshadowing the emotional weight of the occasion. Yet despite the intense security and the looming pressure of her upcoming wedding, the singer demonstrated her profound connection to the city and the venue by appearing in the stands of Madison Square Garden just 1 night prior to her Hall of Fame induction. Sitting in the legendary celebrity row that lines the basketball court, all eyes were fixed on her as she witnessed the New York Knicks secure a stunning, heart-stopping 107-106 victory over the San Antonio Spurs. The game immediately entered the history books as one of the most thrilling and dramatic comebacks in NBA Finals history, a high-stakes athletic battle that perfectly mirrored the intense, dramatic energy of the city itself, surrounded by her close friends and fellow cultural icons, including the talented musicians Estee and Alana Haim, the acclaimed actress Mariska Hargitay, and high-profile contemporary figures like Kylie Jenner, Timothée Chalamet, and Hailey Bieber. She cheered with the genuine enthusiasm of a true fan, fully immersing herself in the collective joy of the New York crowd. This public appearance, juxtaposed against the formal grandeur of her subsequent Hall of Fame induction, highlighted the unique duality that has defined her entire journey. She is at once an untouchable, historical force of nature and a deeply relatable human being who finds joy in the shared experiences of everyday life. While representatives for Madison Square Garden remained completely silent, refusing to respond to repeated requests for comment from the press regarding the upcoming wedding logistics, the narrative of the week spoke for itself. It was a flawless convergence of professional immortality and personal fulfillment. A moment where the girl who once moved from Pennsylvania to Nashville with nothing but a guitar and a dream could look out over the skyline of New York City and know that she had conquered every single peak she set out to climb. The true significance of this entire week extends far beyond the impressive character counts of her music statistics or the dazzling financial valuations of her upcoming wedding venue. It serves as a definitive testament to the power of artistic endurance. The journey of a true hero is never defined solely by the moments of triumph, but by the quiet, unseen hours of labor, the willingness to face public scrutiny, and the unwavering dedication to an internal creative compass. When she stood at the podium of the Songwriters Hall of Fame, crying tears of gratitude in front of her family and her peers, she was not just accepting an award for past achievements. She was validating a lifetime of choosing vulnerability over armor. Her songs have become the connective tissue for millions of human lives across the globe, providing a vocabulary for heartbreaks that felt unspeakable and joys that felt uncontainable. The little girl who used to write lyrics in her bedroom to escape the isolation of adolescence had grown into the youngest woman ever to be enshrined in the highest temple of musical composition, proving that the ultimate measure of an artist is their ability to remain completely true to their own narrative voice through decades of global change. As the curtains fell on the Hall of Fame gala and the final echoes of applause faded into the New York night, the overarching legacy of the event became crystal clear. The music industry will continue to evolve, technologies will change, and new stars will inevitably rise and fall with the passing seasons. But the songs honored on this historic night will remain permanently etched into the consciousness of humanity. Everything originates from the song and its creator, and for this legendary songwriter, the music has provided a path to an immortal legacy that no passage of time can ever diminish. From the nostalgic, youthful strains of Tim McGraw to the sweeping, mature, grand narrative of All Too Well, she has documented the human condition with an honesty that will echo through stadiums and headphones for generations to come. As she prepares to take her next monumental steps into a new chapter of her personal life beneath the historic arches of Madison Square Garden, the world watches with a sense of profound reverence, recognizing that they are living in the era of a true master of the craft, a writer whose words have forever changed the rhythm of our collective cultural heart.